A Night in Yosemite's Shadows. Jake and his friends loved the rugged beauty of Yosemite National Park, especially during the off-season when it felt like they had the entire place to themselves. On one particular trip, they set up camp near a secluded spot by the Merced River. The sun was just beginning to set, casting an orange glow over the towering trees as they sat around the campfire, laughing and enjoying the evening. At night, when they were sleeping inside their camp, Jake heard something strange. He heard footsteps. Quiet at first, then getting louder, as if someone was walking just outside their camp. "Did you guys hear that?" he asked, but his friend shrugged it off, assuming it was an animal. But Jake knew the footsteps didn't sound like an animal. They sounded like a person with heavy boots crunching on the forest floor, moving deliberately closer. Out of curiosity, Jake grabbed a flashlight and looked outside, but he could see nothing. As he turned off the flashlight, the footsteps resumed. So he decided to check the outside once, just to make sure there is no one there. Once he got out, he heard footsteps near a bush at his right, and it was going deep inside the woods. According to Jake, something happened. He started following the footsteps, and everything was blank for him until he heard one of his friends calling his name. And when he got back to his senses, he found himself deep inside of the woods, and the footsteps stopped altogether. Jake looked around, but there was no one. The forest had gone silent. Luckily, he still had that flashlight with him, and he wasn't that far off the campsite. When he returned, he saw his friends were searching and calling for him. "Where'd you go?" one of them asked. "You've been gone for over an hour." Jake froze. To him, he had only walked a few minutes. Later that night, the same sound of footsteps returned, but this time, no one moved. The friends stayed completely still, listening to the heavy steps circling their campsite. Everyone waited patiently for the night to pass. Since then, Jake or any of his friends never went back to that campsite, and I think that is for the best. What do you think? Something lurks in the Rocky Mountain National Park. Olivia worked as a ranger at Rocky Mountain National Park. She loved her job, but one late-night patrol changed everything. Driving along a deserted road, her headlights caught something by the roadside. A tall, shadowy figure. Thinking it was a lost hiker, she stopped and called out, "Hey, do you need help?" No response. The figure didn't move. As she stepped closer, it darted into the trees. Too fast to be human. Olivia's instinct screamed at her to leave. But when she got back to her truck, she found deep scratches across the hood. The other rangers didn't seem surprised. "You saw it, huh?" one of them said. Turns out they've all seen the shadow figure at some point. They just don't talk about it. Mysterious lights in Shenandoah. Emily grew up exploring the trails of Shenandoah National Park with her dad. Years later, as an adult, she decided to revisit the park during a weekend getaway. It felt nostalgic, but something about this trip was different. One evening, Emily set up camp by herself near a small stream. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she noticed a soft glow in the distance. It looked like lanterns swaying between the trees. Thinking it might be other campers, she followed the lights, hoping for some company. I know listening this now might seem like a bad decision, but you'd never expect these things, right? Coming back to the story, the lights flickered, almost playfully, as if leading her deeper into the woods. But when she got close enough to call out, they vanished. Confused, she turned around and realized she had no idea where she was. Damn, now imagine yourself in that situation. This already gives shivers. Her heart raced as she tried retracing her steps, but the trail looked unfamiliar. She pulled out her phone, only to find it dead, despite being fully charged earlier. Just as panic set in, Emily spotted a faint beam of light cutting through the trees. It wasn't the lanterns, it was a park ranger's flashlight. He found her wandering miles off the trail. When she told him about the glowing lights, he looked uneasy. After she explained everything, he said, you're not the first to mention those. We've had hikers claim they followed them and ended up lost. No one knows what they are, but it's best not to go after them. Emily didn't sleep much that night, and she hasn't camped alone since. She still wonders what would have happened if the ranger hadn't found her in time. Now, in my humble opinion, when you are camping alone, two things you should not allow: bravery and curiosity, especially at night. The boy in the Great Smoky Mountains. Lisa and her family were hiking in the Great Smoky Mountains when they heard laughter, soft and playful, like a kid having the time of their life. They figured another family was up ahead, so they kept walking. But the laughter didn't fade. It got louder, almost surrounding them. Lisa's 5-year-old son suddenly stopped and said, "The boy wants us to follow him." "What boy?" Lisa asked, her stomach dropping. "Him," her son said, pointing to an empty stretch of trail. That was enough for Lisa. She grabbed her kids and rushed back to the car. Later, a park guide mentioned a local legend about a boy who went missing on that very trail. They say his laughter still echoes through the woods, trying to lead people to where he disappeared. The last story, the stairs to nowhere. Matt had always loved the solitude of hiking in Yellowstone, the way the towering pines and open skies made him feel free. But on one particular afternoon, he found something that didn't belong. Something he still can't explain. He was following a narrow, unmarked trail when he spotted it. A staircase. It was about 10 steps high, weathered but intact, rising from the forest floor as if plucked from an old house. There were no ruins, no foundation, just the stairs, standing alone in the dense woods. At first, Matt thought it might be some kind of art installation or maybe an old park structure no one had bothered to remove. But the longer he stared, the stranger it seemed. The stairs weren't covered in moss or overgrown with vines like everything else in the area. They were clean, almost untouched. Curiosity tugged at him. Against his better judgment, he approached and began climbing. The first few steps felt normal, but by the time he reached the halfway point, something changed. The forest around him fell completely silent. No rustling leaves, no chirping birds, not even the faint whisper of wind. It was the kind of silence that felt wrong, like the world had paused just for him. When he reached the top step, Matt froze. He couldn't move, couldn't even breathe for a moment. The air was heavy, pressing down on him like he didn't belong. Then, without warning, he felt a sharp tug on his backpack. So hard it almost knocked him off balance. Spinning around, Matt expected to see someone or something, but there was nothing. Just the empty forest. His instinct screamed at him to run, and he didn't argue. He bolted down the stairs, nearly tripping in his rush to get away. The moment his feet hit solid ground, the forest seemed to wake up again. Birds chirped, the wind rustled the trees, and the weight in the air lifted. Matt didn't stop running until he reached his car. As he sat there, catching his breath, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed him out of the woods. It wasn't until later, after sharing his story online, that Matt discovered he wasn't alone. Others had seen staircases in remote areas of national parks. Some claimed they were portals to other dimensions. Others believed they were tied to ancient rituals, remnants of something dark. One detail stuck with Matt. Almost everyone who climbed the stairs reported feeling watched, as if something was waiting for them at the top. His advice: if you ever see a staircase in the middle of nowhere, don't climb it.